ॐ भद्रं कर्णैभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let us now pray together. We offer our salutations to the all-loving being who endows all beings with consciousness. We meditate on the Lord, who is the origin of the universe. Lord, Thou abidest in all, Thou art all, Thou assumest all forms, Thou art the origin and goal of all. Thou art the self of all. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss. Salutations unto Thee. May the world be peaceful. May the wicked become gentle. May all creatures think of mutual welfare. May their minds be occupied with what is spiritual and abiding. May our hearts be immersed in selfless love for the Lord. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Let us close our eyes and feel that all the various shapes have dissolved, gone. As we close our eyes, we see they are gone. It is the one, all-pervading substance. In this one without second, there is no time, no space, so no causation either. There are no desires, but the intrinsic bliss is palpably present. It is absolutely still. Peace itself. Now let us open our eyes and feel that this same substance is appearing in all different forms. That very substance the thing that existed without time, that alone appears as if divided in different forms. Let us try to feel this all-pervasive, one eternal substance everywhere, everything, in everything, even while seeing the variety. Om, peace, peace, peace. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. That is perfect. This too is perfect. The perfect absolute gives rise to perfect the relative. When the relative is taken out of the absolute, that which remains is also perfect. Om, peace, peace, peace. I was thinking of this topic for some years, but because of the vast scope of the topic, I was rather hesitant to give a talk on this, but then decided that I must muster some courage, Vedanta, practice of Vedanta requires courage. So I decided to take up this challenge of thinking about this topic, pantheism. Actually, the title should have been Is Vedanta Pantheistic? But since the title would have been too long to fit in our signboard, notice board, so I decided to make it short, pantheism. But this is the idea that I will be focusing on, that is this Vedanta pantheistic or non-pantheistic? The answer actually, as you can see, depends on what do we mean by pantheism, because there are literally hundreds of ways in which this word pantheism gets understood, gets defined, and also same holds about Vedanta. There are many understanding differences in Vedanta, that one person understands one way, another understands another way. Even amongst the notable teachers and sages, their understanding shows some differences. And so therefore, whether Vedanta is pantheistic or not, just is a difficult subject to say yes or no. You cannot really give a verdict. But we shall think about it as to what this idea is about pantheism. First common thing is that it does not accept a creator God. In all versions of pantheism, there is no acceptance of some extra-cosmic being who created this world and controls and governs it from outside. There is, in pantheism, there is no allowance for such an idea in all various forms of pantheism. None of them would accept that there is an extra-cosmic God who on one fine morning decided to create this world and in whatever 7 days or whatever time completed the job and is now taking rest or is just governing it. So that idea is not acceptable to any form of pantheism. There had been pantheistic religions from very prehistoric days. For example, in the Vedic literature you find these teachings that all is God. God has pervaded everything. If you see the ancient Taoist and Confucianist teachings, you find similar idea that the God is pervaded in everything. There is no separate gods, so to say. So far as the ancient Western philosophy goes, it is, you see, there have been the Greek philosophers who have given a lot of thought on this. What is God? What is this world that we see? And how could a God create a world? So, a lot of thinking that actually came together to pronounce this idea that God cannot be extra-cosmic. God is embedded in nature. God and the cosmos, they cannot be separated. And all the contradictions that we see in the world, they are also pervaded by God. It is, everything is pervaded by God. Now, this statement also throws many intellectual challenges, because these words, they are kind of abhorred by nature. All is a word that involves the inherent contradiction is there. That does all mean all that I perceive, or this perceiver is also included in that all. And there is that famous paradox given by Bertrand Russell, that suppose in a village there is just one barber, and then a statement that in the village all men who do not shave themselves get shaved by this barber. This statement appears to be okay because there is no other barber. Either men have to shave themselves, or if they need to shave, has to go to this barber. But somebody raised this question, what about that barber himself? If he shaves himself, then according to the definition, he should not shave himself, because that barber shaves only those who do not shave themselves, so he should not be shaving themselves. And if he does not shave himself, then he has to shave himself. So it is, and in everything, this, wherever you use these pervasive terms like everything, all, the contradictions come because of where to stop this everything. If you don't stop it anywhere, then the statements about this everything that are contradictory, they are also included in this all, and so they become applicable to the God that is all. For example, the pantheist would say that no, there is no creator God. But what about the sentence that there is an extra-cosmic God? Is God in that statement also? So, if God is in everything, God is in this statement also, isn't it? That an extra-cosmic God created this world. So, now what to do? Therefore, the pantheists, many of them say it is difficult. You have to feel it. It is not just the words, because words of this type, they have inherent contradictions built in them. So let us steer clear of those. Let us keep those things out and try to feel these ideas. This word was coined, pantheism, much later than the ideas which represent this philosophy. So it is one Irish philosopher, his name was D.S. John Toland. He used this term sometimes close to 1700, and then the use of that term became pretty common. It has been then used to describe many different philosophers. In the Greek philosophy, as I mentioned earlier, there are philosophers like Parmenides, then some others, pre-Socratic philosophers, who had this idea of God in cosmos. God is in everything. So, but the problem of this absolute and relative was very difficult to solve. And it seems that it was Plato or Socrates, whatever you may say, because Plato is all Socrates. So he gave that a clear picture as to synchronizing or putting together logically the absolute and relative. So it was, I would say, a philosophical masterstroke of Plato, that to have the coexistence of the absolute and relative, the unchanging and the changing. So, in a way, you can, it is Plato recognized an absolute and eternal God, but exists in changeless perfection in relation to the world of forms. It remains changeless, but these forms change, and then there is the soul. The world soul appears as the soul of all. So it is, he gave a beautiful analogy as to changing and the unchanging, the motion and the unchanging, that something that remains stationary, by giving the famous classical example of circular motion. Imagine something rotating, that it is the most natural motion that is found, and that is used everywhere in all mechanical and engineering that equipment that is used, and that is the motion of a wheel. A wheel. So, a rotatory motion. Now, the circumference is constantly moving, the center is stationary, around which it moves. So, there is this unchanging, unmoving, absolute, around which all the relative kind of move. And that center is involved in everything. That in this sense that everything rotates around it. So, and since that Buddhists give a similar example there, that those which you see as changing, they really don't exist at all. It is like you see a circle made by a torch. When you rotate the torch, you see a circle of light. But that circle doesn't exist. It is only the movement of the torch that creates the illusion of a circle. But then it is moving around something. So that center is motionless. So the relative and the absolute is kind of embedded in it together like this. And then for many centuries we don't see much of this pantheism. It is because those ages were dominated by the Jewish and the Christian biblical thought, basically. That all the Abrahamic religions, they dominated all this philosophical thought too, and nobody dared to raise voice against them. So in the Western culture, pantheism, because that denies a personal creator God. And so it took many centuries for this thought to surface again. And the most prominent, and I would say the one who comes closest to the Vedantic idea of all-pervasive God, is you get it in Spinoza. Spinoza was born as a Portuguese Jewish, but the family settled in Holland. So he was born in Amsterdam in 1622 and passed away in 1677 at an early age of 45, untimely death. So, but during this time, his thinking and his literary works, most of it was published posthumously, and some that was published earlier were published anonymously, because he was being kind of watched. Already he had been excommunicated. One of the the harshest excommunications decrees was slapped on him. He was excommunicated. It said no Jewish person should read what he says, listen to him, have any contact with him. It is for what? No reason as such has been given. But obviously, because he was questioning, actually he was appointed as along with some of his friends that to teach at the Jewish these religious schools. But then his views were so radically different. He questioned the Bible, that it is not a revealed word. It is something that human beings have written. It is a figuratively given history, that's all. It is, there is nothing in that he said, my reason doesn't allow me to accept the authority, Bible as an authoritative text, to be followed without questioning. So, his spirit of reason and questioning, naturally, as he denied the God of Bible, the God of Abraham and Jacob and all that, that must have been enough, or actually more than enough, to excommunicate him. He didn't meet the fate of Bruno, who was actually killed by the Orthodox, those the fanatic Christians. But this also was for that time very difficult to digest. His ideas that there is, and he fearlessly mentioned it in his works like Ethics, which actually compiles most of his works on religious ideas. There were some other papers too he published. Well, Spinoza is a very exciting topic to discuss, but today we will limit the discussion only to a few points that he mentions, that his views, he removes that kind of distinction between cosmos and God. The world, the human beings, and knowledge serve to ground a moral philosophy centered on control of passion leading to virtue and happiness. That is, control, and then control would lead to virtue and happiness. That it is, if you see that God is pervading in the world, so his ideas also lay foundations for a strongly democratic and political thought. He also wrote the critic of the philosopher, French philosopher, whose philosophy has the biggest influence on all Western thought in till now, that is Descartes. So he wrote this critic to show that Descartes, this division, the three divisions of Descartes, like the universe, the soul, and God, they are not tenable. So it is, and his Spinoza was quick to point out that each being would have a worldview. Because the difference is there between the minds, it is, and every creature has its own way of these thinking about the ultimate principle, the God that is immanent, is pervaded in everything, would be viewed by all in various different ways. God is involved in those thoughts as well. So, he therefore writes that it is, suppose you can think of it, that, and I quote here, "For I believe that if a triangle could speak, it would say in like manner that God is eminently triangular." He says the biblical idea that God is a human being and so forth, like eyes and all that, God sees and so forth. So, a big human being. So, if a circle speaks, it will say that, well, no, God is not triangular. Who said that? It is, God is circular. All those who say triangular, they are not correct. So, as Swami Vivekananda says, that imagine a cow to be a philosopher. Then for the cow, the God would be a big, huge cow. So, it is, Spinoza was quick to understand that it is. Thus, each would ascribe to God its own attributes, would assume itself to be like God, and look on everything else as ill-shaped. Triangles are the best shapes. The triangle would think like that. Circles are not, they are ill-shaped. So, it is like that, I am right, others are wrong. So, here Spinoza further goes to say that all different religions are just the manifestation of that urge for God. We all look for that substance. This is the word that he used to say that God is the unchanging substance in everything. Is the substance that does not change. So, that is the search for all different religions. And so, and how one achieves that is, well, by controlling passions and then trying to feel this inner substance in everything. And that is the essence of morality also, that what is here is also there, not different. So, it is. So he says that the world is a necessary effect of the divine nature, and it has not been made by chance. Not that it is made by chance, or it has not been created either. It is the automatic expression, very close to what we call Shiva Shakti, Brahman, and its power to manifest. So, it just manifests as this world. That is its nature. It is the unchanging substance manifesting in all changing forms. So, and he says the highest form of knowledge consists of an intellectual intuition of things in their existence as modes and attributes of central substance. All these different forms, they are modes and attributes of that eternal substance. Like I give example of the animal crackers of different shape, that substance is the same. The shapes are different. So everything is like that. The unchanging eternal substance is the common thing in all of them. And he says that eternal substance, or let us call God. This is what it means to see the world from the aspect of eternity. And that substance is eternal, doesn't change. This kind of knowledge leads to a deeper understanding of God. It becomes a meditation. He didn't use the word meditation, but this understanding, that is seeing the same substance in all, who is all things, and ultimately to an intellectual love of God. It will lead to an intellectual love of God. This phrase is rather funny, the love of God, but intellectual love of God, what I would say is the love that is accompanied with knowledge of this or knowledge of this fact that God is the essential substance in all. So, love means the urge to be united with that God. So, and then it brings a form of blessedness amounting to a kind of a rational mystical experience. So, it is a rational, means you proceed rationally and you end up in mystical. He gives a hint that there you go beyond reason. So, in Vedanta you read many such sentences which say that God is pervaded in everything. The self is in all. Self is the eternal substance, and the self is same as in everything. The self remains the same irrespective of the relative bigness or smallness. This substance is the same in all. The substance is called Brahman or Atman. The difference with Spinoza also needs to be looked into. While Vedanta says that the Atman, the self, is in all, it does not eliminate a personal God, because that very substance also can assume the form of a personal God. If you think of a form, then in the form there are all the rules of relativity that apply. It is, for example, there is a form of a potter and the form of pots. Now, potter is the maker of those pots. So, now think of the whole universe, everything that you see differently shaped, as if there are different pots. So, the personal God could be that potter who makes all these pots. If you see the variety, if you see that they have characteristics, specific characteristics, and then their exchange that happens according to certain rules, then you cannot escape a creator and a governor God too, which is not contradictory in Vedanta today, understanding that this self is the all-pervading absolute. Yes, but that very self, when we do not appreciate that self in its absolute way, absolute form, then, and we see the universe, the different shapes, and the time-space causation, then there is the relative universe and the God that creates and governs it also there. In Vedanta that gets called Ishvara. The Ishvara, the God who creates and all that, and therefore that God can be prayed for too. The God that is the substance of everything. And now how can I pray to that God? Is my very reality. So the prayers therefore are not possible to that kind of God. So, but Vedanta accepts the need for prayers and the need therefore also for this God. It is not contradictory. Secondly, you see that the pantheism, even of Spinoza or many others, do not include a transcendental attitude. The transcendence is a very important idea in Vedanta. The Vedanta has these two together, immanence and transcendence. The immanence is accepted by the pantheist philosophers, including Spinoza. But transcendence is not accepted. So many these pantheist ideas you see in Swami Vivekananda's works. Many times Vivekananda has to tell that, no, that's not what I mean. Not that all this is God as it is. It is not in that sense, but only in the true sense. And so, to know that one has to transcend the forms. It is only then we shall be able to see the substance. It is the substance or the principle is embedded in all forms. The forms do not have existence without the substance, but that doesn't mean that the substance has no existence without forms. So, you need to practice that transcendence. In fact, it is one of the major practices in the path of knowledge, and to a great extent even in the path of devotion, and the practice of transcendence, that learn to go beyond the attributes, the limiting attributes, so that you can see the unchanging substance. It is the generalization principle that so go beyond the particulars, and you will see the general truth that pervades them all. This is transcendence. As you can see in the famous hymn of Shankaracharya, that I am not the mind, not the intellect. I am not the ego. I am not all the sensory and motor organs. I am the consciousness, absolute bliss, absolute. I am the Shiva. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Manobuddhi Ahankara Chittani Naham. That is the transcendence. Manobuddhi Ahankara Chittani Naham Nacha Shrotra Jivhe Nacha Grana Netre. Transcendence. I am not this, not this, not this. Then what am I? Well, what remains? After you take out all these attributes, the shapes, and so forth, what remains? That is what I am. The existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. That is what I am. All these 6 verses, the first part of it is transcendence. That I have no friends, no foes, I have no relatives, I have no parents. I am the bliss and consciousness absolute. So, I am this comes as a consequence of the transcendence. The realization comes as a consequence of this transcendence, while in pantheism this idea is not emphasized or even mentioned. Vedanta, that is very emphatically mentioning this idea of transcendence. God is in everything, but it is there is another name for this, a variant of pantheism, that pantheism means God in everything, not God is everything, but God in everything. Now Vedanta says, well, you are right and not right. God is in everything, not like cookies in the box. There is a box and there is cookies. So is God like in everything? Everything is a box and God is put in that? No, not in that sense. But like the gold is in a statue made of gold. A statue made of gold, there is gold in it, but it is not, that statue is actually gold, that's it. There is not a box-like thing. So, it is in that sense Vedanta says that God is in everything and therefore God is everything. But therefore you should not, this is where the spiritual practice steps in. Otherwise it becomes a very glib and non-spiritual statement that, okay, so all these things are God. I don't need to search for God. Whatever I do is God. It is even the bad things that I do, that also is God. All my attachments in the world, they are also, they are God after all. This is an argument, an excuse given by many that, love your God, don't get attached to the various things in the world. And because of that attachment, what do you mean? Are those things, God is in everything, God is in those things also, so my getting attached to those, nothing bad in that, I am getting attached to God. But this is only a very lame defense for perpetuating the attachment to the different things sans the substance. That is, therefore Vedanta says, no, that is not right. You are just hiding your weakness behind this idea. So one has to learn to transcend, to see the truth. There is that famous incident in Holy Mother's life that somebody asked her, a devotee asked her, that, well, Mother, since everything is done by the will of God, God does everything, isn't it? Of course, yes, God does everything, she agreed. So, whatever I do, even the bad things I do, God does them, isn't it? Then Holy Mother said, well, do you say it knowingly or unknowingly? It is, do you know really that God does everything? If you know, you wouldn't make such a statement. So, that is where the idea of transcendence comes. Otherwise, I don't want to give up my attachments. That is what attachment says, Attachment, they further degenerate into addictions. And even after seeing the bad effect of addictions, people don't want to give it up. That famous story, it is somebody was smoking. He used to smoke a lot. So his wife told him, hey, Tom, this is slow poisoning. Tom again took a puff and said, well, darling, I am in no hurry. So it is that you kind of support your addictions, don't want to give those up. And then this becomes a good excuse. Well, God is in it also. And this cigar that I am smoking, is it not God? Yes, I am showing my respect and love to God by that. So, these are therefore not supported by Vedanta, in fact vehemently condemned, that give up your attachments in the path that is characterized as a path of devotion, love of God. So there it is told, the same thing is told, but saying that turn your attachments from specific things to God, or in Spinoza's words, the substance. That is, turn it to that substance which is eternal. So, this is very important idea, very important difference between Vedanta and Pantheism. And another difference, we saw that Vedanta does not discard the personal God at the relative stage. On the relative stage, if you are accepting variety, in absolute you don't accept variety, and so no personal God is necessary either. But if you think of yourself as a person, and then you are seeing the world, now, well, it is a relative plane, and so a God has to automatically step in. Vedanta does not reject that God. As maybe some of you are following my lectures, ongoing lectures in Bhagavatam. So in Bhagavatam you see clearly that very God also creates everything. So there is no contradiction in Vedanta in this absolute and the relative ideas. And therefore, as the practice of transcendence in Vedanta, so many disciplines have been told, which apparently it seems Spinoza also accepts. Spinoza is accepted by many rationalists or scientists as representing their understanding of God. For example, Einstein expressed his opinion that Spinoza, I accept God, but not an extra cosmic God, but I like this Spinoza's God. So, and Spinoza has mentioned ethics as we saw, but is not so clear about it. Another thing, and I will conclude with that Vedanta very strongly mentions that one must realize this truth. This truth has to be realized. It is not just an intellectual consent to this, but it must become a living experience. This afternoon I was giving a talk, and then somebody asked this question. It was a Zoom talk. So somebody asked this beautiful question, that what is the meaning of realization? I said the word actually gives the meaning. It must become real for you, tangible and real for you. That is realization. And I told an incident that I had told here many times, that a little girl coming with her mother in my office and then was asking for chocolate. And then there was a TV ad going on, ad of chocolate. That crying girl, I told, hey, why are you crying? Just pick up that chocolate on the TV. Now she didn't budge from her place to get it, because she knows that it is not real. It is not real. So our ideas about God and such things are, they are not motivating us to go and hold on to that God. It is therefore not realization. They must be seen as real. So Vedanta emphasizes that these truths that you understand, to some extent, they must become real for you. Realize it in this very life. This, in fact, it is again and again emphasized that life is meant for realization of God. As you must have read many times in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings, that God realization is the only goal of human life. That is the goal of human life. So life is for that. In Ken Upanishad, immediately after telling the philosophical idea about the pervasiveness of the self, it is said that this must be realized, and if you do it, then you have used your life. Atha ched avedid atha satyamasti na ched iha vedid mahati vinashti. That if you realize this in this life, then you have made good use of this life. Otherwise, you have wasted this opportunity that has come your way. This is an opportunity to realize God. Don't waste it. So, this is what is, you say, a tremendous emphasis in Vedanta, realization. You must go and get it. That is the idea, that it is not just intellectually, yes, everything is filled with one substance. No, know that substance as your very reality. Let whole life be around, built around that and that alone. So these are some of the ideas of pantheism and Vedanta. So it's a vast subject, and sometimes again we will take up a related topic. We shall now think of it for a few seconds, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to voice those. Yes, please. Any question, Prithvish? Very good. Any question here? Oh, there is one.
Does God have an individual personality, or God is not a personality?
Well, it is both. God is personality or God is not a personality. God is both. Actually, because God is in everything, each of us is a personality but is not limited by a personality. It is true with everyone because each of us is again a God manifested. So, each of us has a personality. But let us remember here the meaning of personality. It is a covering. And we are beyond that covering also. God has a personality. If you want to have a personality of God, you can give a personality to God. But let us remember that just as we are not limited by our perceived personality, God is also not limited by that personality that we give. Like you may give the personality like Krishna or Mother Kali or whatever. And God has that personality. In fact, God manifests in any form that you like, that your mind goes to. So according to the mind of the devotees, God manifests to them in that personality. So, therefore, God has personality and God is beyond personality. Both of that, yeah. Yes, Eze, you have a question?
Is there a difference between the individual soul and ego?
Oh, well, a question very difficult to answer. Individual soul is the reflection of the consciousness in body, subtle body and gross body, mainly subtle body. And one of the functions of subtle body is ego. So, it is the soul is the conscious entity. Ego is not a conscious entity. Ego is a function of the subtle body, or what we call in Sanskrit antakaran, the inner instrument. And all that is, when you see, they say, a sun reflected in water. Now, what is the difference between their water and sun? It is the sun is and is not in the water, but the sun illuminates that water. So it is something akin to that. The soul is the conscious entity that one knows but yet cannot grasp. The ego is one of the functions of the subtle body. So, let us conclude with the closing prayer. Before that, let me tell you the upcoming programs. Now, we won't have any Sunday service in January. And in February, the first Sunday, there is the day-long celebration, not day-long celebration this time, I am saying it out of habit. It is the morning worship program, worship and some music, food offering, etc., from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and in-person attendance for that is already full. So, but there is the symposium in the evening, where there will be 3 speakers presenting the ideas on life and teachings of Swami Vivekananda. One can attend that symposium. There is no registration required for that, and that symposium will be followed by a Shivanam Sankirtanam, as 108 or so. It is actually 81 chants. 81 chants in the honor of Lord Shiva. Swami Vivekananda was considered by many, in fact many of his brother disciples had that realization also, that Vivekananda is Shiva incarnate. So it will be this Sankirtan of Shiva, that would be as usual at 5 p.m. And then the Tuesday, Friday classes will go on as usual at 7:30 p.m. And the Tuesday topic is Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play. Fridays it is Srimad Bhagavatam. And let us now conclude with the closing prayers. It will be followed by Arati as usual. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahur Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.
Breaker of all our worldly bondage and adored by all, we adore you too. Stainless Lord, assuming human form. Stainless Lord, assuming human form, transcendent yet filled with love. You free us from the stain of sin and ornament our world. Consciousness is your form. Your eyes always purified by knowledge. Your eyes always God incarnate and the Lord of all things, helping us join with you. Your mind's always set in the divine light. Your mind's always set in the divine light. This we can see through your grace. Destroyer of our worldly sorrow and compassion so infinite is your word. Your life's offered for the world's deliverance. Your life's offered for the world's deliverance, saving us from darkness and fear. Renouncer of all lust and lucre, therefore you were always spurning sensual life. Lord of monks, you are the best of men. Lord of monks, you are the best of men. Grant to us pure love for you. You're fearless and you're free from doubting, with your mind very firmly resolved. Causeless refuge of your devotees. Causeless refuge of your devotees. Renouncing caste and birth. Our treasure is your holy feet, which take us very soon across this puddle of life. You give love and even-sightedness. You give love and even-sightedness to remove our anguish here. Our treasure is your holy feet, which take us very soon across this puddle of life. You give love and even-sightedness. You give love and even-sightedness to remove our anguish here. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of both. O Lord, yet you are the basis of both. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heartscape. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heartscape. Darkness is destroyed by your light. O Lord, darkness is destroyed by your light. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Greetings to you, O Lord, beyond both speech and mind. Yet you are the basis of both. O Lord, yet you are the basis of both. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heart's gate. Great light of all lights, blazing in the heart's gate. Darkness is destroyed by your light. O Lord, darkness is destroyed by your light. Langa ranga bhanga, these are all the sounds of mridanga. Langa ranga bhanga, these are all the sounds of mridanga. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Spiritual songs devotees are singing for your worship divine. Jaya Jaya for your worship divine. Hara Hara for your worship divine. Shiva Shiva for your worship divine. Breaker of all our worldly bondage and adored by all, we adore you too. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Auspicious and blessed graciousness sublime, all noble ends you give to us, granting us refuge, all-seeing Gauri. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Creation, preservation, dissolution are your powers, eternal one. Nature's real basis, nature's essence. O Mother Divine, our love to you. We come seeking refuge from anguish. Be our Savior through your deep concern. All our suffering remove, Goddess. O Mother Divine, our love to you. Victory, O Mother Divine, our love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, all love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, all love to you. Blessed Mother Divine, all love to you. Jai Shri Ram Krishna Dev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Sarda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Swami Vivekanand Ki Jai. Jai Shri Buddha Dev Ki Jai. Jai Shri Jesus Christ